Yes. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Veterans Minimum. I'm your host, Nick Deus. At Nick Deus 10 is where you can find me. A third episode of VM this week, and I had to get my guy on. A double calling in. Alan Stirk. What's good, baby?
In the grind, baby. It's football season as we're kind of in the midway point and coming off a big weekend. I feel like the buzz couldn't be higher, even though, as we previewed this weekend's games, quite the downfall, but nevertheless, we're amped up.
I mean, look, we're coming off a weekend in which the games were an absolute banger, but this weekend is it's a +1 weekend, right? This is a weekend where you take your significant other, you take the +1, and maybe you go apple picking, maybe you go pumpkin picking, maybe you go out to dinner because if you miss this slate of games, it's not exactly banger after banger that you're missing.
Or I would recommend doing something Sunday or Monday night because that's where the real duds are at.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, the primetime games are a little lackluster, especially with the one on Thursday that we ended up catching between the
Yeah,
Saints and the Cardinals.
I can't defend those night games, but as someone that advocates for 49ers, I still think there's some potential with that 4 o'clock slate.
Dude, I feel like this is a nice little segue into talking about, how I want to talk about the quarterbacks, right? But in particular, a quarterback that we just saw on primetime, which Denver has had, what, 5 primetime games this year?
Four too many.
I mean, dude, like, what is happening? Like this, and look, the expectations coming into it, we were hyping the AFC West being like the greatest division of all time. I know I was. So yeah, the reasoning behind why there were so many primetime games, I get it. But also, I was like, dude, come on, let's start flexing shit out earlier on in the year. But I want to talk about the potential fall of some of these quarterbacks that have been big names for a very long time. And each one, there's been a different reason as to why they might be falling off a cliff. And dude, remember we were talking about this a couple of years ago, how there's always a quarterback every year that has a fall that falls off the cliff, and it's a sudden drop too. Like it's not they go from being an elite guy to being like, yo, this guy might need to get benched because we're in trouble. We've seen that happen with Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, my boy Easy E, Eli Manning. And now there's a couple candidates here, and I want to see where you're at with some of them. And one of them being Russell Wilson. Are you in panic mode for Russ?
I've been Pambo for Russ for about 3 weeks now. Just because you watch him play, it just seems like everything is a struggle. There's no cohesion. There's no quick game. Like every completion just seems like Russ has to manufacture something, or he's just straight up missing receivers. Like you just see it week in week out. There's passing lanes that he should be finding it, and just I don't know. He's just not seeing the field like he once was, and he doesn't have the same athletic traits that he did 5 years ago to make those special Russ plays. So that's why I think everything's crumbling for the Broncos offense.
He started the first half fairly well. He had some vintage Russ plays, especially on one of the touchdowns, like him escaping. You were like, oh, maybe the reports of him having to get his shoulder checked out, that's why the lingering injury from the preseason coming in. Maybe that's why you're kind of giving a reason or an excuse, depending on how you feel about that, as to why he was struggling. And then the second half comes around and you're like, yo, this guy is unwatchable.
Yeah, he stopped targeting the Croatian tight end, man. You see, things were going well when he was targeting the long-haired Croatian tight end. It was just Greg, oh, not Greg Dulcich, Troy Aikman. Come on, man. But nevertheless, yeah, Russ. It's just anytime you see him on third long, he'll like pump fake, double clutch, like just nothing seems smooth. And I don't think that was always the case with him in Seattle. It's just if you need him to like get like a quick 8 yard completion, he just kind of struggles to just identify the receiver. For him, it's like everything has to be vertical or outside the numbers. Like I don't know, maybe the lack of play action hasn't helped either, but like it's just a real struggle with this offense. And I'm starting to wonder, just based on how everything is kind of played out, did Denver, because Nathaniel Hackett does not look like an NFL coach. It looks pretty clear. So I'm wondering, did the Broncos hire Nathaniel Hackett just because they thought they could really get Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson was the backup plan?
I think that's exactly what played out. It just makes sense, right? Like Russ kind of fell to their lap. They weren't expecting Russ. And ever since they got him, it's been a lot of weird things that have gone down. Like giving him the contract when they did, there was no threat of him holding out. There was no issues about him complaining about not having a contract. And then he gets there and his contract is outrageous. 5 years, 242 million, 161 of it guaranteed, which is for him, congrats. Like that's amazing, right? But if you're Denver, you did all that before you even saw him play. He was coming off a season last year where it's been a rough 18 months for him, right? Remember 2 years ago, the conversation about Russ was, yo, he never got an MVP vote. And then he comes out the gates those first 8 weeks and he's lighting it up. He's putting up big numbers and it's like, oh, he's finally going to get an MVP vote. He might even win the MVP. And then after that, everything has just been a slow decline. And then so far this year, it seems like he's kind of fallen off a cliff, Alan.
Yeah. I mean, I think ever since the second half of that 2020 season, then I think it was the Seahawks losing the first round to that Rams team that I think Jared Goff was playing like with he wasn't playing with a broken thumb. He was dealing with some hand issue. But I remember that Seahawks wildcard loss to the Rams. And that was a game that easily should have won because that Rams team was super vulnerable. And since then, that Seattle offense thing just started kind of becoming fragmented. And, I know we all had hopes that he would get like a new lease of life in Denver. This would be his offense. But whether it's the wear and tear of playing behind that Seattle offensive line year in and year out and taking close to 50 sacks a year, or him just not having the arm strength anymore, or just the accuracy, there's just not many moments. Like I'm used to watching Russell Wilson making like 4 or 5 wild plays a game, and like now you just don't see. You just see him. Balls are flying everywhere. Like there's nothing accurate. There's nothing cohesive, and you could also say him not having a steady running game is probably an issue because for the most part in his career, he's always usually had a consistent running game, and this is the first year where it's like there's no running game to speak of. So maybe that's also wearing on him, but. All this has just culminated to being definitely one of the worst contracts in the league, if not the worst.
Man, it really might be one of the worst contracts in recent memory. Factoring in how much money he's going to be making yearly and the cap hit and his age also, he's going to be 34 and it was always cool that he was undersized and he was being so productive and so efficient. But you can only withstand so many hits at that size too. You've seen Kyler Murray go through this, right? I know, terrible mentioning Johnny Manziel, but like that size quarterback, those hits weigh on you more than when you're 6'3", 6'4", and you're like Big Ben, or you're Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, right? Like eventually that stuff, it wears out. And I'm worried that Russ, it's still an upgrade from what it was last year for Denver. But it still can also be the case that this contract was bad and he's just not playing well. And I don't think they could turn it around either, Alan. I think it might be a wrap.
I don't know how it's an upgrade when they're 31st or 30th in every major offensive category. No, this offense is just as bad. They got to take the L on this one. Like Seattle's going to reap the benefits. Seattle's already putting together a really good draft class. They're getting better quarterback play from rejuvenated Geno Smith. They got played on this trade, and at this point, I don't see much hope for them. I don't know if they can really stick with Hackett, given how overwhelmed he's been. But I just don't know what the silver lining is and it's unfortunate because I just think, like you look at the history with Seattle, they had so much success, but they didn't. Both sides didn't do each other well at the end of it, and we talk about short quarterbacks, but look at what New Orleans built with Drew Brees. Drew Brees is one of the most undersized quarterbacks ever, and he was well protected for the majority of his career, and that's why you saw the longevity. It wasn't until he got really old where you saw the fall off. He didn't really start falling off till he was like 37. So the fact that Russ started to decline last year and now looks like someone who's a below average quarterback goes to show you how much it's hard to maintain playing at such a high level as a quarterback position.
But with Breeze also, just to piggyback off what you said, Breeze fell off because he never was an arm strength guy. Like you never mentioned Drew Brees as, he got this laser rocket arm. Drew Brees was always a finesse passer. He was very accurate. He had a great touch, but he never had a Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes arm, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, where those guys, they're not throwing 98 anymore, and now they're throwing 90, like there's a drop off. He was always throwing 82 miles per hour, like his whole career. And then eventually when he gets to that age where the hits start piling up and then he's 37, 38, And now you were already throwing 82, now you're throwing like 65. It's like, yeah, that's why his career started fizzling out. I mean, dude, I was talking about him. He couldn't throw a ball like 20 yards downfield. Slant boy with Michael Thomas, like a big part of that was because Drew Brees just couldn't air the ball out downfield anymore. And another quarterback staying somewhat in like the NFC South who is kind of getting a little bit of heat. I never thought I would say this, but Brady too, bro. Like, Alan, what'd you think about those reports of Brady going to the wedding on Friday prior to playing in Pittsburgh?
I didn't think it was a big deal. I think,
You don't think so,
look,
bro?
he's as bad test as it gets. I think the issue with Tom Brady right now is that offense just doesn't seem to be on the same page. The offensive line's a mess, and I don't know, Brady's not in sync with his receivers. I think ultimately he's really missing a dependable tight end. I think Brady, over the course of his career, has been very reliant on a tight end and also like a James White type running back.
Dude, I don't know, man. I feel like it's one of those cases that you leaving your team becomes a story if you don't win. So if they won, we're probably not having this conversation. But since you ended up losing and they played the way they did, I don't know, man. There's something about it that's just not. You as a Falcon fan, there's not a part of you that thinks you guys might be competing for this division.
I mean, the schedule's getting lighter soon, so I can see him being competitive. But I don't know.
Bro,
Tampa
I
Bay is
see
just
the
too
smirk in
talented.
your face. You want to
No,
believe.
I think Tampa Bay is just too talented about test to lose this division. It might be competitive for a bit, but I still think Tampa Bay is a top 4 team in the NFC.
But is that saying much? Like, who's the second best team in the NFC that you would trust?
It's not saying much, but I still think they're a contender. They're still a team that can make a run because they just have so much talent. It's just a matter of, I don't know, like the offensive line's kind of disaster, and they still kind of get healthy. But second best team in the NFC, I came away pretty impressed by the Cowboys on Sunday night. Still, with that coming back, I gotta go with the Cowboys at this point.
Minnesota 5-1, bro.
Yeah, I'm not buying them one bit. I
Yo,
wish I
no,
could,
it
but
is. Why though, Alan? Why? Why? Is it because of Kirk? It got to be Kirk, right?
I just don't think the defense has played all that well, and the offense goes
Good
through
point.
real sputtering stances. Like Minnesota, nothing's easy with them. It just seems like they'll have a couple flash plays, they'll force a couple turnovers, but you don't see like just consistent stops, you know, long 10 to 12 play drives. It just seems like there's just flashes, but a lot of it's just breakdowns. So I just need to see more consistent from Minnesota. They're doing their job, they're winning games, but I haven't really been wowed at all by them.
There's always a moment when I'm looking at the standings after every week, and it catches my eye, and I'm like, damn. And one of them was Minnesota. I was like, damn, they're 5-1. And it jumped out to me because I just felt as if we've been shitting on Minnesota so many times and Kirk Cousins. And I think it might have been me falling for the prime time when they looked so bad against Philly and then they had to claw their way back against Detroit. And they've had some favorable things fall into place for them. There was a London game. You played Miami without Tua and even without Teddy Bridgewater. But dude, they're 5-1, man. And it could also be me being a little biased and trying to pat myself on the back saying that they might be in the NFC title game. But I think Minnesota is going to be interesting, man. That's a tough out. I think they're going to be a tough out for people because of the talent that they have on offense.
Absolutely, yeah. No, they're definitely the talent. Their defense is what really concerns. They're allowing a lot of big plays. It just seems like it's easy to throw on them, and then offensive line, which is always kind of a concern. Tension on the interior. Man, Miami was getting after him bad. So I don't know. I need to see more steadiness with Minnesota. But look, that trio they have with Cook, Jefferson, Thielen, that's one of the best. And I think Zadarius Smith has been as one of the best free agent signs, which we kind of
Yep.
expected. We were really excited about that move. And every week it just seems like he's causing havoc. So look, their stars are doing the things. It's just I need to see more collectively before I really believe in Minnesota.
The last quarterback I want to talk about, and it seems as if it gets worse and worse every week for him, it's Aaron Rodgers. His timing with his receivers, his body language, his interviews, his post game stuff. There's a lot of things that have me concerned if I'm a Packers fan, if I'm a fan of Aaron Rodgers. He is just not playing at a high level And I know it's the new receivers. I get that. But also, dude, you're Aaron Rodgers. You should be able to help elevate these guys as well. Don't you think, Alan?
Absolutely.
So
I don't.
to me,
There
is
looks like
it
a disconnect.
right? Yeah, like I know Adams was so that tandem was so special. I'm not gonna disregard that at all. But I think some of the ways that he's carried himself, whether it was in the offseason or with this season coming into it, I think you got to put a lot of blame on yourself too if you're Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I just like you could talk about the receivers not creating separation, the lack of a vertical threat. But look, Matt LaFleur has done enough in this league where it's just like, okay, you got to respect him as a play caller. It just seems to me like Rodgers kind of goes to the beat of his own drums, excuse me, and like he just like he throws to who he trusts. He trusts Robert Tunney and Randall Cobb. Those two players can't be at the nucleus of your pass attack. He does trust Lazard a little bit, but I think we know Lazard is just a big body receiver who makes contested catches. I just think not having that true go-to number one that can stretch the field and do it all has really affected them. But it's like Rodgers, you just see him checking out of plays. Like it does look kind of reminiscent to 2018, where you clearly saw he did not care what Mike McCarthy was calling. And it would be very unfortunate if he does the same to LaFleur, because LaFleur, say what you want about his playoff success, fine. I know they've fallen apart, but look, back-to-back years, number one seed, they've become like at the top of the NFC. Like just you expect them to be there. For Rodgers and LaFleur not to be on the same page after all their success, I think is very disappointing. And I definitely some of it has to be put on Rodgers because you just kind of see from his body language like something is just not right.
Dude, also he's won 13 games in his first 3 seasons. Like, that's
Yeah.
you're not even if your quarterback is elite, for you to win that many games, like a lot of
Mhm.
it has to be with you too, man. So we can't shit on Matt LaFleur.
Right.
All right.
So I don't know. And like you see, like Rodgers constantly just always throwing by the line of scrimmage. Like they don't push the ball downfield. If he pushes the ball downfield, he throws a remarkable ball at Allen Lazard, which oh my god, was one of the best throws of the weekend. But besides that, it's just you don't really see any explosive plays, and it gets to a point where defenses kind of figure out. And I don't know where the Green Bay goes from here. Like to me, I preach about it every year they got to be active at the trade deadline, but I'm pretty certain they're not going to do anything.
I mean, yeah, dude, we've been fantasy booking wide receivers that are in places where you can go and get them. Like everyone now, it's DJ Moore is the hot commodity that's going to go to Green Bay. I've talked about this many times. It's been Manny Sanders, it's been Odell, it's been all these guys, and then no one goes.
I did see them recently being linked to Chase Claypool. I think that would be a bigger move than people would
Ooh.
envision. I think Chase Claypool could be a star there. Like I still believe in Chase Claypool. I just need to change scenery. If they can make that happen, I might have some belief in Green Bay again.
Damn, that's a good one. I like that one. Chase Claypool, huh? And it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh got Pickens that they love. They got Deontay Johnson also. You have the new quarterback coming in with Kenny Pickett being there. And I know Trubisky came in relief. Like, probably that would be the guy. They already paid Deontay Johnson, and I'm sure Claypool is going to want to get the bag soon. And you just got Pickens. So I feel like he's kind of the guy that you'd be able to go and get from Pittsburgh. That'd be interesting. I didn't hear that name. But I would like that. And he's a big body,
Yeah.
too. He's a home run threat. Claypool could really get down there. So it's going to be interesting, man. I think these quarterbacks, they all have some flaws, and each of them for different reasons. But it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out because without them, their teams are not going to be able to go as far as they want them to. And the last quarterback we just talked about was Aaron Rodgers. He suffered back-to-back losses to the 2 New York teams, Allen. And I know when we were putting this show together, you wanted to talk about the rise of New York football. What is
It's
it?
here.
What is it, though? What is it about it that got you so excited? Because it got me all pretty overstimulated about over here.
I mean, they've been on the receiving end of punchlines for like 5 years now. So just to see something that's refreshed, two big market teams, two teams, like I said, that have been like when you think of punchlines, when you think of franchises in complete disarray, these are the two. Like you in October, you kind of already look these two teams and it's like, all right, I'm really not going to pay attention to a full game of them. I'll watch the highlights, but besides that, why am I going to watch any film on the Giants and Jets? They're irrelevant. But now they're at the forefront, and I just think the way they've injected this young talent, both of them, I think, capitalizing off major trades with obviously the Giants with that Bears trade for Justin Fields, and then the Jamal Adams trades for the Jets and the Seahawks. Like both these organizations were put in positions like, all right, it looks like you won these trades pretty clearly. Now it's time to capitalize on it. And you see with the draft classes, you see also now with the coaching staffs, they're putting together some beautiful stuff. And I know some of these wins are ugly, particularly with the Giants, but you have to commend them for finding unique ways to win and just kind of play disciplined football. I think that's what kind of people lose sight of when it comes to watching football. Like, it's not always playing to win, playing not to lose. I know it's kind of a corny catchphrase, but these teams, both the Jets and Giants, they're not putting themselves in position to lose. They don't really turn the ball over much. They're playing fundamental football, and it's paying off. You're not collapsing the fourth quarter like the Ravens. They're not self-destructing like the Packers. They're just playing sound football on both sides of the ball, and they're reaping the benefits.
Listen, man, I agree with a lot of what you said. I'm going to let you know this. You got to let us have this. You got to let New York have this, bro. It's been rough in the Big Apple.
Yeah.
Last year, both of these teams won 8 games combined. They've won 9 so far this year. All right. 2 years ago, prior to that, both of these teams, 2 wins for the Jets, 6 wins for the Giants. They've won more games than that. Like, since 2017, combined, the most wins that these two have had together have been 11 wins. And they're at 9 now. So if New Yorkers are acting arrogant and they're feeling full of themselves, it's been rough for the boys for a very long time. So let us have this. And also, they have some good wins on there too. Like, you're not beating up on the Texans and the Jaguars, even though the Giants and Jaguars play each other this week. Like, you were the punching bag for all these years. You were the team that when you were on the schedule, you were looking at it like, oh, that's a W, that's a W. Dude, they beat the Packers, both of them. Giants just come off a win against the Ravens. The Giants have 3 wins in which they were trailing in the fourth quarter by double digits. Like, these are some big wins that these teams are having, and they're beating good opponents. Or they're going on the road and they're winning, right? They went into Pittsburgh and they beat Pittsburgh, did the Jets. They went into Cleveland with the comeback. Little fluky. That's never happened before to the Browns, and they scored 14 points in 1 minute and 37 seconds. But, like, bro, you got to let us have this, Allen. It's been rough.
Yeah,
my season,
absolutely.
I haven't gone into October being optimistic since like 2016. And even then, it was like I didn't even feel confident about the team. And look, I think the Giants have gotten lucky. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, a lot of things, like the way they're playing football, they have no receiver over 250 yards receiving. That's wild. Daniel Jones doesn't even have 1,000 yards passing. That's crazy. When like Josh Allen and Mahomes do that in two and a half games, they have like 1,000 yards throwing. It's basically just the defenses for both of these teams have been unbelievable. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking about Sauce Gardner. I came on here after the quarterly awards, and I was saying how I think he's the defensive rookie of the year. And this was before he had the big games that he's had the last 2 weeks. And he just fits the profile of a corner that doesn't give a damn. He goes up against the number 1 receiver. He did it against Chase. Even though the Jets got smoked in that game by the Bengals, he was manning up on Chase. He's a rookie, dude. And I know Chase is in his second year also, but that's a big step. That's balls right there. And then Breece Hall, all my friends, all the guys that you know too in the group chat, they're raving about Breece Hall, so, second round pick. And I just kept saying, like, dude, you got Michael Carter also. He's dominated that backfield. The Jets might have both of the rookies of the year on their team. It's wild, man.
Yeah, they're the consensus favorite right now, both of them.
They are. And the Giants, like Thibodeau, just came back now fully healthy, and he had his big moment, got the closeout sack. That's why you drafted him when you drafted him also. How about this? At the end of the game, he's in tears. He's all emotional. He's like, yo, I thought he didn't like football. That's what all of you were telling me in the draft, that he dropped in the draft because he didn't care about football.
Nonsense.
Like, thank God he did. I'm happy because I'm happy that he's a Giant, but that's also like really stupid that he dropped because of that. Like, people are just trying to create these like narratives about someone. Like, yeah, of course he cares about his brand. Everybody cares about their brand now. So I'm happy that he's on the Giants. Now, I got to ask you, what do you think of these two teams moving forward? Which one do you think is more sustainable to winning the rest of the year?
Based on roster talent, I definitely have to go with the Jets, even though I think the Giants have a superior coaching staff. It's just with the Giants, some point they're gonna have to like throw the ball in certain games. It's just right now I don't know how you can trust the they were running some of the most funkiest formations. Like they ran that wheel route. What was it? Play the Matt Breida. It was like a wheel route. They were like 32 personnel. They had like 3 backs, 2 tight ends. It's like some of these formations are just so funky, and it's like, oh man, all right, this is working now. But if they got to play the Eagles and the Cowboys, which they still got to play Dallas one more time and Philly twice, like oh man, I think they're in for a bit of a rude awakening. Well, the Jets, like you look at Garrett Wilson, you look at Corey Davis. I know Elijah Moore hasn't been getting targets lately, but he's still someone that's capable. And then you have the backfield. Like Jets are just more equipped offensively, and they have a couple of blue chip players defensively where it's like I trust them. But the thing is, like both these teams to me are the best divisions in football. Like AFC East, quietly to me, is the best division of football, or at least the most complete one. While the NFC East, we've spoken how good that division is. So I think both teams are going to have to step up the game a little bit. But I just think based on roster talent, you have to go with the Jets.
I do think the Jets are the more complete team. I think top to bottom, not that Zach Wilson is heads and shoulders better than Daniel Jones, but I think the way he's playing and what the Jets are having him do, like I think he has more upside than Daniel Jones, because also Daniel Jones has been in the league now for so long. We kind of know what he is. Like he's also being protected. Like a lot of the things that they're running, they're protecting him to not overexpose him. But I do think the Jets, it's more sustainable for them to be winning. Look, I've watched every Giants game. I've watched every Giants game twice, as I always do. And they've gotten lucky, man. They've had a lot of breaks go their way. But they're
that Mark Andrews drop. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh,
that was
dude. And also that Matt Breida play you're talking about, that was a dime by DJ. He doesn't make
that was a hell of a throw.
That was a hell of a throw, man.
He's been fine, man. Like I at this point, I would trust Daniel Jones more than Zach Wilson. I know Zach Wilson has more upside, but if I'm starting a game this Sunday, I'm trusting Daniel Jones. I am not liking what I'm seeing from Zach Wilson. To me, he's still one of the bigger liabilities on the Jets at the moment.
Giants schedule rest of the way. Remember, they're 5-1 right now. They're 5-1. At Jaguars, at Seahawks, home Texans, home Lions, at Dallas on Thanksgiving, home Commanders, home Eagles, at Commanders, at Vikings, home Colts, at Eagles. Dude, if you just go 500 the rest of the way, it's 11 wins.
Yeah, they'll be a 6 seed, maybe a 5 seed, depending on Dallas.
And you know who I want too, right in the first round. Come on.
Who?
Come on. I wanted this 2 years ago. Also, I want Brady, bro. I want Brady in the first round. He's gonna see that giant helmet. He's gonna be having PTSD. Let's go. Give me that. Yeah. Brian Dable. As I'm sporting as I have my Stone Cold shirt on, I want to mention that Stone Cold is my favorite bald dude of all time. Brian Dable's closing in, Alan. He's
already.
All right. It doesn't listen when it's been bad for so long, right? It's like when you get out that toxic relationship, that next fling that comes in, and they're praising you and they're loving you and all that. It's like this is the best ever. This is how I feel about Brian Dable. Top 3 bald guy all time already.
Now, when it comes to mullets, where do you rank Wink Martindale? Is he up there with Roy Nelson?
I think he's only behind Theo Vaughn for me.
Oh, Theo Vaughn, bro. Theo Vaughn. Yeah, Theo Vaughn technically, he does have a mullet.
He does, man. The Rat King, bro.
Yeah.
One of the GOATs.
But, man, sir, can we just Martindale blitzed 70% of the time on dropbacks last game. Like, he just told Lamar Jackson, I know you. I'm going to blitz the hell out of you. And if you can't respond, too bad. And it was a very efficient strategy.
We're sending everyone. We're sending everything. We know you, like you said. That was expected. I thought he was going to go, like, we knew that his style is to blitz. But I think with Lamar, look, the memo is the game plan on Lamar is out also a little bit, too. Like, we saw Miami do this on that Thursday night game. I think that was the first time that we saw when they came out that Thursday night football game last year. And they were sending everyone. They have the two really good corners, and they were putting them in man coverage, and they were just sending the house on Lamar, and he looked flustered. He looked pretty bad. That's one of the worst performances I've ever seen Lamar have. And then you saw what the Giants did, and it's like he knows him. He's been with him all these years. Oh, you knew that was going to happen. You knew that was going to happen.
I want to mention the Bengals as well. Bengals on Sunday night, I thought really got to him, and you saw Lamar miss a couple of downfield throws, and I think he had a pick in that game as well. So, yeah, makes you wonder like how they're going to adjust. And one thing with the Ravens, not to go too into Ravens, but like I'm so off on Greg Roman. I just feel like this guy makes zero adjustments when it comes. You could devise a hell of a running game, but when it comes to putting together a productive passing game, it's been an issue for years, and that's one of the main concerns I have with the Ravens, which is unfortunate because I think they really do have one of the best rosters in football.
We're praising New York football and we're excited about it. But one of the games of the week this week is the Falcons and the Bengals, and that's your team, bro. I know you were telling me right before we started recording how busy you've gotten with all the Falcon content that you have out there, and I hope people from VM go on and they check that out and show love to Alan, because we've kind of been in the same boat, bro. Middle of October, the seasons have been over for us the last couple of seasons, and now the Falcons are in a pretty interesting spot. They're playing the Bengals on the road. Falcons 6-0 against the spread. You know, degenerates are loving that. They're a 6.5-point underdog to the Bengals. The last two times we've seen teams start 7-0 against the spread, it was the Cowboys last year, and then in 2019 it was the Kansas City Chiefs. Outside of that, you got to go back into the 90s to find teams to be that good.
Good company you got there.
Yeah, that's good company, man. You guys got to just, not only cover the spread, you also got to get some W's. How do you feel about this game, man? One of the two games that we're going to highlight this week before we start closing up the show.
It's a tricky game for sure, just because I think Cincinnati is starting to play better. I think slowly they're finally finding balance with the running game because they've been desperately trying to get the running game going, but now they're actually seeing some success, and finally they're getting chased on a couple of big explosive plays because I just think a lot of defense are playing too high, and Burrow hasn't necessarily solved it. Some of that's due to bad coaching, some of it's Burrow just not wanting to turn the ball over. But now I think that Saints game was very encouraging. So I'm pretty optimistic with the Bengals. But at the same time, the Falcons, oof. Like, the thing is, like, they didn't even run the ball that great against the 49ers. Like, both Algier and Huntley had under 4 yards per carry. But the thing is, the Falcons are so persistent with the ground game, and they're just pounding teams into submission. So what they did against San Fran, it was just they played bully ball. And the Bengals without DJ Reader, I think, can get bullied. So that's where I guess the advantage lies with the Falcons. It's just with the Bengals, there's just so much firepower there. And I think they're slowly starting to find their rhythm. And if this Bengals offense, if they're firing all cylinders, not many teams that can stop. Definitely not the Falcons defense. We know that because there's still a lot of holes there.
So do you think Chase and Burrow go bananas again this week?
Especially now Higgins healthy, I could see that. Just the Falcons lost Casey Hayward, which is a big loss. He's like one of their veteran leaders. He's gonna be out for the next month. So, and then I still think he's playing well, but AJ Terrell's been on the receiving end of some bad touchdowns this year. Like poor Brandon Ayuk lit him up on that touchdown. I don't know, Terrell kind of getting caught flat-footed a few times this year. We see now Robinson, Michael Thomas get after him, and now Ayuk. So yeah, I think Terrell, he needs to just be a little more focused because a player of his caliber can't be getting lit up like that. But no, I think it's a really good game. I'm kind of split on it, but it's just man, like the Falcons, just because they're so dependent on the running game. Like they're 3-0 when Mariota throws less than I think it has 15 or fewer completions. So I'm just concerned if they're chasing this game and they can't run the ball as much. When Mariota becomes a drop back passer, bad things happen. And you know how much I love Lou Anarumo. Lou Anarumo, he can bring the worst out of quarterbacks, and it doesn't take much to bring the worst out of Mariota.
Yeah, man. You still want to see the Falcons trailing like 10 to 14 points to see how this offense is going to be, because everyone is comfortable when they're playing with their game plan and what they want to do. I do think that they've been fun though, man. Like they're running some really fun run schemes too. I know you were big on the coach sort of his running style, like what he had at Tennessee and then what he's doing over there. Like they run like a high school football offense sometimes. They'll have like 3 guys in the backfield, and Mariota is a threat running the ball also. And look, man, you still got 2 guys that can make some things happen in Drake London, and then with Kyle Pitts too. Like Kyle Pitts, he's like the most frustrating guy in fantasy football. It's like this guy should be putting up 8 and 100 every week, and it's sometimes he's not really getting plays drawn up for him. But on the flip side, I think it's going to be interesting to see Terrell go up against Chase, man. Do you think that's a matchup that we're going to be seeing often? Does AJ Terrell travel? Like he
Yeah, he
travel.
does. He
Yeah,
does.
right.
Yeah, DPs puts him in that role. So yeah, he will be traveling, especially now that Casey Hayward's out. So I do think we'll see that match quite a bit. I think people forget with Chase, man. Especially you watch that Saints game, like he breaks so many tackles. Like we know Chase has this explosive receiver who's just this vertical threat, but you throw the ball underneath to him, he's getting yards after contact. And oh man, he's scary to deal with. It's just a matter of the Bengals have to get him the ball because I just think man, as a couple games this year, he's been schemed out. But now I think they're starting to find the rhythm, Burrow and Chase.
Dude, both of these teams are 3-3, man. Like this is a pretty big game, dude.
I'm definitely yeah. Oh, this is to me the second best game of the week. It's just they're just so like it's just hard to grasp what the Falcons are doing because it's just this is a team that's running like 13 personnel, 22 personnel. Like I think no team uses fewer 11 personnel, which is three wide receivers, sets fewer than the Falcons. Like this is a team that will use a fullback and a second tight on majority of their snaps, and they're just bullying teams at this point. So it's just so unorthodox. Like to me, the Falcons and the Giants are just they're kind of running their own ways, and I think it's just cool how they're not following trends. It's just like this is how we're building our offense, and that's how successful it's going to be. And you're kind of just seeing what it's like for teams that are using different formations and using those pre-snap motions just to create those mismatches, and that's what the Falcons are doing. But if I had to make a prediction, though, I'm still going to go with the Bengals. I just think offensively too much firepower, and even though we talk about the Bengals defense not having much star power, like their defense is still very well organized, and I think their pass rush is slowly putting it together. And I can see Trey Hendricks having a big game, and ultimately Mariota throwing multiple picks and Bengals winning a close one.
So I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. I was gonna go in a little different direction, and I didn't want to completely shit on the pass rush for the Falcons, but I do feel as if this could be a good spot for the Bengals offensive line to sort of get it together. They've had a rough go of either defensive schemes or like pass rushers that could dominate games, right? Like they went up against TJ Watt, obliterated them. Parsons, what he did. You have the Ravens, a team that you had the revenge factor also, but the way they get after the quarterback too. And I think the Falcons, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the one that covers the Falcons, you would know more than me. They don't really have much of a pass rush.
I mean, Gray Jarrett's definitely had his best year since probably 2019. Like Gray Jarrett's definitely been a one-man wrecking crew. I always talk highly of Gray Jarrett, but he's having a resurgent year. But besides that, yeah, their edge rushers are rookies, and
And
Lorenzo Carter hasn't really done much. So no, I
former
think
Giant, former Giant.
former Giant, yeah, he's been okay. He's a contributor. But if Gray Jarrett isn't obliterating the interior, which is a major concern, like that Bengals, oh man, like Burrow's still taking a lot of hits, and the Saints were getting after him, especially Marcus Davenport. Yikes!
Right.
Oof. But no, unless Dean Pease is dialing up some exotic blitzes, or Gray Jarrett's taking over, I think Burrow should be staying tall in the pocket.
Yeah, that and look, when I say the pass rush, and I know the interior lineman could get pass rush as well, but I always think traditionally it's like coming off the edge. Like that's where Atlanta doesn't really scare you as much.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so to me, I'm with you, man. I think the Bengals win this game, and I think they actually cover this game too. I think if they jump out to a lead, it might be hard for Atlanta to come back, and then that's where it could really get in trouble for what you were saying, that matchup between the defensive line and them generating pressure on the Falcons' offensive line. That could be an ugly one, and then that's where people like you who cover the team is like, yeah, maybe that's why one day we want to see Mariota get replaced because it's fun, it's a little gimmicky, but I think it could open up things for them as well.
Yeah, no, couldn't have said better.
All right, the last game that I want to talk about is the Chiefs and the 49ers. And this was one that you were more excited to talk about this one. I feel like you're a San Francisco 49ers kind of a truther, a supporter.
Yeah, man, they're one of my favorite teams. But boy, you want to talk about a team that's beat up right now? They have about 13 injuries, and they're come off a beating. And I just saw one of my favorites on their team. Man, why am I butchering his name? Hufanga. There we go. He's in concussion protocol, and now Tre'Davious Ward's dealing with a hamstring issue, and Ayuk's banged up, and we don't know if Bosa's going to play. So it just look, you need everyone to beat the Chiefs. Like I know the Chiefs have come off a loss, but I thought the Chiefs played very well against Buffalo. Just third team won at the end, and the way San Francisco looks kind of fragile right now. Oh, I'm excited about this game, but oh man, a team that I thought had the best defense in the league is looking very depleted at the moment.
Injuries, man. Injuries start piling up. You know that's going to be an issue. And also, I think the travel is interesting too. You know, back-to-back weeks, you're out in the East Coast. I liked Atlanta in that spot last week. I took Atlanta with the points. I took them they were a 6-point underdog at home. I didn't really understand that. And then it ended up closing at -3 for the Niners, like a whole field goal moving with no real injury news to the position that matters the most. And a lot of people were coming in. I know a lot of professional bettors out here were telling me that the Falcons were one of the best plays on the board. And I agreed with them. And now with San Francisco, like, look, Kansas City's coming off an emotional high, right? They were playing Buffalo. That was a game that they were excited for. Everyone was hyping up game of the year. Shout out to Tony Romo. Did you catch that? He in the first quarter, he predicted the score. He said 24-20.
I mean, he's brilliant.
Dude, he's so good, man. He's so good.
Yeah.
It's such a fun dynamic, him and Nance. I love it. But Kansas City now, man, going into San Francisco. I think San Francisco might be able to bounce back, and I kind of like them to pull an upset this weekend. Am I crazy? It's weird. It's weird when you're like picking against the Chiefs and the Bills, right? Doesn't it feel wrong to do so?
Feels wrong. It's just I don't know how you could be like optimistic about the Niners at the moment. Like for me, if the Niners go pull off an upset, like they need their trio to just make big plays. Like you need Garoppolo not to turn over multiple times, but this needs to be a game where it's like okay, Debo, okay, Kittle, okay, Ayuk, like all three of you just explode. Because one thing about Kansas City, they're not a very good tackling team, and we know there's no team better after a catch than Say Fred. So to me, it's like Say Fred's got to be ready to score at least 27, if not 30, to beat the Chiefs.
So that's one of the notes that I had here. Like this is, if you're struggling to make tackles, this is not a team you want to run into.
No,
because they got Ayuk, they got Kittle, they got Debo. They got guys that are going to make you pay if you're going to be slipping up on tackles. And that 6-yard gain could turn into a 36-yard gain at the snap of a finger. So that's why I think, and Shanahan, I do feel like Shanahan thrives in these kind of situations. I don't want to say back against the wall, but, you're coming off a loss. You're a little hobbled. You're a little injured. It's Kansas City coming into town. They're at home. I think this is a spot where I'm going to be back in the Niners, man. And I think I'm going to go ahead and say they're going to upset the Chiefs. And then I think this is what I think is going to happen this weekend. Tua's going to come back in Miami. They're going to look the way they did those first 3 weeks on prime time. So it's going to be showcased. I think Kansas City is going to lose to San Francisco. And then you're going to be back to where we were before week 1. Oh, no Tyreek. Is Kansas City going to be the same? They weathered the storm. And I still trust the infrastructure there. You saw Juju get going last week, which was big for them. Mecole Hardman, I finally don't bet him to score a touchdown after 5 weeks of punting my money, Allen. And then what does he do last week? He scores a touchdown because I didn't bet him. That's always the case. So to me with Kansas City, I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think San Francisco is going to pull the upset. And I think the talking points next week will be, oh, did we jump the gun on Mahomes without Tyreek?
I definitely think it could be reality because, like, one of the craziest stats is no team's facing more man coverage than Kansas City. Like, teams are daring them. Like, we will put our corners on your receivers, and they're not going to get open. I think like a lot, as great as Kansas City's been offensively, I think a lot of it just comes down to Kelsey being Kelsey, Mahomes being Mahomes, and just great play calling. But like those receivers aren't really getting open. Valdez Scantling is just so volatile. Juju's at this point his career is a possession receiver that could do some things after catch. Hardman just a gadget guy. Like to me, like they really need either Sky Moore to make serious strides or they need to sign Odell. Because if they don't do that, I'm not sure if they could beat Buffalo. Because it's pretty clear, like you watching that game, as well as Mahomes was playing at times, they just don't have that quite the dependability at wide receiver, someone that you could really go to on third down if Kelsey's not open.
And look, this is going to be a tough matchup for Kelsey also. I think San Francisco
we know those linebackers bring it.
Oh, yeah, and they're guys that are not afraid of pass coverage, no matter how elite you might be at tight end. So this is going to be a tough matchup for Kelsey too. That's why I think San Francisco is going to be, despite the injuries, I think they still are strong where they need to be to take advantage of what Kansas City does well, or on the defensive side doesn't do something that well in tackling. So I'm on San Francisco, man. I think they upset the Chiefs.
Okay. And man, if Bosa could play, that could be huge because I think Kansas City, as good as their line is, their tackles are very frustrating in pass pro. Like we talk about Orlando Brown being 370 pounds and just not always being able to get to the edge. But even the right tackle, Andrew Wiley, I think he's become kind of a liability. So if Bosa could play, ooh, I could see him causing problems. But I'm just going with Kansas City. I just think they're more dependent at this point. And look, man, Garoppolo, it seems like every big high-profile game, he gives the defense 2 or 3 opportunities to take the ball away, and I could see that happening. Yeah.
They're good guard to guard is the strength of their
Yes,
offensive
that's
line.
all. Yeah,
The
it's
tackles
probably
are the
up
issue.
their best league.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we're on the same page there. Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. Like I think the 2 games that we mentioned, and even if you weren't a Falcon fan, those would be the 2 games that I think are the most compelling. Obviously, I'm excited to see what the Giants are gonna look like against the Jaguars. But if it wasn't for the fact that the Giants have a winning record, like if the Giants were 1-5, I'd be like, yo, there's no way I'm watching this game. Evan Ingram revenge. You think he pulls a fast one on us?
Nice 3 catches for 38 yards. I think that
and a drop touchdown.
I think,
right?
man, the Jaguars are like a year away at this point. You just watch them; they're just, oh man, you can see the pieces are there, but it's just, I don't know. 1 week they're generating pressure, the next week they can't get it. They can't touch Matt Ryan, and then it's like Christian Kirk's going wild, and then he gets like 4 targets. Like there's just no consistency right now. So I really don't know what to make of them at this point. They're one of the true enigmas of the league, and I don't know. That is an intriguing matchup, though. I will say, Giants Jaguars. It's not a big matchup, but I don't know. I was expecting more from the Jaguars. Now they've been let down, and the Giants are just kind of, I don't want to say must see TV, but it's impossible not to be intrigued by the Giants.
Let's go, baby. 6-1 on the way. 6-1, Allen. 6-1.
What a way to say it.
6-1, bro. I can't believe it. Let's go, man. Duval, we coming. Man. We coming. Yo, Allen, this was fun.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do wild card weekend when we only have to do like 15 minutes of discussing a Giants playoff game?
Oh my God! Don't do this to me, bro. Don't do this to me. I'm not gonna know how to act, especially over here having me running around in the sports books watching the Giants. Oof. Give me Brady. Give me Brady in the first round in Tampa.
And please, Kadarius Toney, get healthy, man. I want to see Kadarius Toney in this offense. Please get healthy.
Hey, listen. 1 game back of first, bro. Maybe.
All right. Look. Philly. I don't know. I've watched Philly, but
yo,
Philly.
Hold on.
I don't know who's beating them.
I want to just pull the curtain back real quick before we end this show. I made a bet with our buddy Ralph. Shouts to Ralph. He's a big Cowboy fan. I made a bet with him. Yo, the Eagles are going to win the division. We made a $100 bet, just, mano y mano. We didn't look at the odds or whatever. Because I kept saying, like, the Eagles were mispriced. They should have been the favorite coming into the season. Now they have a 2-game lead over the Cowboys. But what was funny is I'm talking to him the other day, and I'm like, dude, you know what's crazy? If the Giants end up winning this division, and I didn't even bet on my own team. I picked the team that I hate the most to be the team to win the division. Oh, man, sports. You got to love them.
The best.
Yo, Allen, you're the man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Where can they find you? Is there anything you need to plug, bro, with the Falcon stuff? Like, you're working really hard on this shit, man. I want people to go over there and show some love. Yeah,
ironically, right now I'm working on a long form Mariota piece because I've been calling for Mariota's benching for a couple of weeks. But look, he played flawless against the Niners. That was a really gutsy performance. So I'm writing about how Mariota is making his mark on line. He's not the long-term answer, but he's someone that I think can be an asset when you're utilizing properly. So I definitely giving Mariota some love. I'll be doing a Falcons Bengals preview pod. I am shifting from preview pods to post-game reviews because I have to start going back into the office next week. So my podcasting, the remote days are over. So I have to go back to the office a couple days a week. So no more preview pods for you. I'll be doing post-game Falcons coverage, and of course I'll be doing Wednesday nights with you. So a lot going on the Falcons between writing and podcasting. So Falcoholic, be on the lookout for that.
Listen, man, old Dirt McGirt. I've been a Mariota guy for a long time because I had him 18-1 to win the Heisman. So shout out to the Oregon Ducks, baby. He's always good in my book. At Nick Day is 10 is where you can find me. At Veterans Minimum is you can find everything for the show. Check out the Patreon. Join the Discord. We're making some changes to the Discord. There's going to be a Discord server that is going to be open for all fans of VM. Every single one of you will be able to get into that to help build the community. And then there's going to be a separate Discord that is going to be for the members of the Patreon. Over there will be different perks and incentives, and you guys will help produce the show, as I've asked many times, for you guys to give us questions or thoughts or comments, and also like the betting stuff will be all in there. We're adding some people to that Patreon Discord that's going to be for members of the Patreon. And then there's going to be a Discord to just build a community, because I think that's the next step to adding some stuff to Veterans Minimum. VeteransMinimum.com is you can find everything. And hope you listen to the UFC pod before we go. Shouts to my guy, John Orlando, for joining this. And we will catch you guys next time on VM.